So you chose Vex as your first Vault Hunter? Good choice, my friend. She is my first choice as well, and I'm going to show you how to have the best leveling experience with her. Vex is the Borderlands 4 Siren, but she's definitely a different playstyle than Sirens in previous games, so if you're used to like Maya and Amara, then you might want to pick Harlow instead. But Vex is an amazing Vault Hunter to pick if you enjoy pet builds or summoning clones, kind of like a Necromancer class or Flax pet builds in Borderlands 3. And then her third tree gives Warlock vibes with the Incarnate skill. It really reminds me of Song of Flame from Destiny. I know people don't like hearing Destiny references, but there you go. This leveling guide is going to go over the best skills to spec into early, especially if you plan on playing on the hardest difficulty. I'm also going to give you my tips to get overpowered early and what type of gear to look for on Vex. And don't worry, you don't have to have a backpack full of legendaries to make her work. There's also going to be a link in the description to my skill tree on the Maxroll website, along with a written leveling guide. So if you just want to follow along and have something up on the side, you can do that as well. But in this video, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on why I prioritize certain skills. So it's definitely got some bonus information. So if you want more videos like this on Borderlands 4, don't forget to subscribe or consider becoming a member because I have a lot more coming your way. All right, first up, the early game, your first 20 levels, let's say, in the Borderlands 4 campaign. These are my tips for your first few campaign missions, and this is coming from somebody who has played through the campaign, so I'm giving you guys recommendations based on my experience. I recommend Dead Ringer for this leveling guide because I found it the easiest to use, the least amount of gearing. It was just kind of up and running, super simple and easy. For the first 10 skill points, you're definitely going to want to focus on gun damage, because in the early game, you're not going to have a lot of action skill cooldown rate, and you're not going to be using your skills a lot or have a lot of damage into them. So it's a lot easier just to spec into gun damage. That way you don't have to worry about any downtime on your skills. Also, the other reason why I choose the Dead Ringer skill tree and the clones is because your specters do gun damage. So the gun damage that you spec into for Vex herself is also going to benefit your clones in a lot of cases. You have to make sure that the skill says that, obviously. And that's probably a good segue into the actual action skill because I haven't mentioned it yet, but Dead Ringer is the action skill. You get 3 charges and you can spawn phase clone minions, choosing a Spectre or a Reaper. Now Spectres do gun damage, but they don't move, so they're kind of like little turrets, and Reapers taunt the enemies and they deal melee attack damage and they move around. They even float up into the air if there are flying enemies, which is really great because usually melee minions cannot get flying enemies, so that's really good. And their damage type is going to match your current attunement when you spawn them. So you can spawn one, switch weapons, spawn another one, and it's going to change the element of that clone. And then speaking of gun damage and the attunement system, make sure you keep any good elemental weapons that you find. So I preferred Malawan SMGs during my playthrough, so I could switch elements depending on the enemy type. So you kind of get a 2-for-1. You can spawn a clone, switch your Malawan to the other element, spawn another clone, and then as you level up to like level 10 or so, you're going to start seeing multiple licensed parts on each weapon. There's a higher and higher chance to get more licensed parts the higher level you are. So as you level up, you're going to see more licensed parts. If you see a Malawan with a Jacob's license part, that is Chef's Kiss. Definitely pick that up and try it because you're going to get the ricochets from the Jacobs from the crits, but you're also going to have the ability to switch the element with the Malawan. And later in the skill tree, we're going to be focusing on crit chance, so those Jacob's guns are going to come in handy. So the one exception to the rule of elemental weapons is the Vladov assault rifle with the alt fire extra barrel. It just does so much freaking damage. It's actually insane. So you're definitely going to want to keep one of those on you. If you find one, it can last you 10 plus levels. The next earpiece you want to look for is in the ordnance slot. It is a throwing knife with the perk damage amp payload. I literally used a level 6 one of these through level 20. It allows you to do 15% more damage to the enemy when they are hit with the throwing knife. So it's great for your minion damage because you can just go around hitting with the throwing knife because you get 3 charges of it and you can hit different enemies, and now your minions and you are going to be doing more damage. And then my last 2 tips for leveling: after the first story campaign mission, you're going to unlock Moxxi's Encore machine, allowing you to replay bosses for a small price. And if you don't have good gear, you may want to consider going back to the very first boss in the campaign, Splash Zone. He's down here at the bottom of the map in the Fade Fields, and you can run over there. It's a very easy reset with her big Encore machine to just go and farm him a few times. He has a really great legendary shield that can help you while leveling as well. And then my last tip is that when you're ready to travel to the next biome, when you've completed Fade Fields in the campaign story and you get the missions, the main missions that are going to send you to the other biomes, you can choose which one to go to, the snowy area or the like deserty area. And I would recommend going to Carcadia Burn first. The questline is called Wrath of the Ripper Queen, and once you get over there, you're gonna unlock Moxxi's bar, and you can actually tip her just like you could in previous games. Tip her 100k and she should give you a legendary Malawan shotgun. If you don't have a good weapon already, that can be a good option. All right, so now that you have the basic tips for the beginning of your leveling process, let's go over the points that you want to put in from 1 to 22. So of course you want to equip Dead Ringer first. You want to put 5 points into Cold Iron. This is going to give you and your minions additional gun damage. After those 5 points, you'll be able to slot in the Coven augment. Coven is going to help you so much early on because spawning in a Spectre grants you critical hit chance for duration. It stacks up to 3 times, which means you can get 30% crit chance from having 3 Spectres out. Of course, if you're having trouble with health regen, you can also just spawn a Reaper. You could have 2 Spectres and then 1 Reaper out to taunt and give the rest of you health regen. Your next 5 points are going to go over in the green tree into Grave Sights. Now this is just for Vex, but it's going to increase your critical hit damage and gun handling, and we just increased your crit chance by spawning Spectres, so now we're increasing your critical hit damage. All right, for our next 5 points, we're going back to blue. We're putting 5 points into Grave Assault to get increased fire rate for a duration. Now, fire rate is just like a multiplier on your damage in Borderlands, and it's just gonna basically make you shoot faster, so you just do more damage because you're getting more bullets out. I chose to go with Grave Assault over something like Portents of Suffering because when you're leveling, you can't really help if you have like the best weapons for the status effect and stuff. Our next point is going to go into Blood Sacrifice to activate kill skills whenever your minions die. You're going to have 3 minions that you can go through, so that's a nice way just to get those kill skills up, especially on bosses. And then our last 5 points for the early leveling are going to go into Grave Fiends. This is another kill skill. Your minions and you are going to get more damage. All right, so at this level in the campaign, if you're falling behind the enemies in level or you just need some better loot, you can always go back to Splash Zone like I mentioned earlier, or maybe a different boss, maybe farm a boss a couple times to get some good loot. You can also pick up the Collect and the Trace repeatable missions on the little bounty boards at the faction towns if you want extra XP, but personally I wouldn't really go out of your way to do them. The other side missions are going to give you more XP. And then speaking of loot and these little side missions, don't forget to open your reward boxes. A lot of times there's loot that comes out of there that was a reward for a side mission or a bounty or something like that. So make sure you're opening your reward boxes. And then at level 15, you're going to unlock enhancements. And at level 20, you're going to unlock class mods. Enhancements are like artifacts in previous Borderlands games, but in Borderlands 4, they are focused on the manufacturer license parts. I ran the campaign mostly with Jacobs or Malawan enhancements, depending on what guns I was using at the time. If you can get both of those on every weapon, then you're going to be in good shape. But you also want to pay attention to the perks at the bottom in order to boost your damage. You want to look for, obviously, gun damage, the specific gun damage that you're doing, like SMG, and crit damage, obviously, are all great. Class mods can help fill in the gaps of your skill tree, and you can get up to 7 points without even having to be in that skill tree at all. So you can get like red points that have minion damage and stuff like that. There's so many minion damage and action skill cooldown passives that you're bound to find something helpful. Some of my favorite skills to boost are ones that I can't get down to, like this infusion one where it says when Vex uses a rep kit, she and her minions gain bonus damage with guns and melee damage for a duration. The elemental type is based on your current attunement. That's a really good one for the rep kits. Getting overshield is always really nice. You can also pair that rep kit one with this one, Fiendish Invigoration, where Vex uses a rep kit, she and her minions gain increased movement speed and fire rate. Like I said, fire rate is just an add-on to damage, so that's a really good one to get. If you could get points into Mortal Terror, a chance to activate kill skills when critically hitting enemies, that is an amazing one as well. And then I have seen some class mods with Blight Attunement that gives you a little corrosive minion that goes around. That one's not bad. Recurrence is another really good one, giving you damage. I mean, there's so many in here that you really can't go wrong with the extra bonus points from your class mod. All right, let's move on to mid game. Here are the points that we want to put in starting at level 23. We're going down here to Prismatic Weaponry, 5 points into there, and then over to Obedient Fiends, 5 points into there. This is just giving us extra minion damage. We're getting bonus damage with gun critical hits. Of course, we are boosting our critical chance with the Coven Augment, so it's all kind of coming together. And then once you get 10 points into this branch, you'll be able to unlock the capstone, which we're going with Dark Pact. Now, Dark Pact allows you to heal all of your clones, and it kind of stops them from losing health for a period of time, and then the health loss is reset back. So it's a way to extend the duration of your clones. So it's really helpful in boss fights specifically. But the other benefit to this capstone is that it allows you to slot 2 augments, which is unique to Vex. No other character has this, and we're going to slot Coven that we still have on for the crit chance, and then we're also going to slot Wither. Now, Wither is a minion skill. Specters cast Wither on an enemy when they spawn, dealing status effect damage over time and increasing damage taken for a duration. Can stack once per elemental type. So this is another reason why it's important to swap your elements when you spawn your specters whenever possible, because it's going to stack Wither on the enemy. A kill skill allows them to use it again, and it's going to give you a 30% debuff on the enemy, which is huge. So 30% debuff on the enemy, stacking once per elemental type. We've got our 30% crit chance over here, and then Prismatic Weaponry as well is going to give you 30% bonus damage, but bonus damage is further increased by 50% per active attunement skill. So you always want to be swapping your elements when you put your clones out, because this is also going to benefit it. All right, back to the skill distribution. Let's look at our last and final points all the way up to 50. So we're going back to the green tree, and we're going to take Grave Implements, a 5 out of 5 in there. This is going to increase you and your minions' gun damage again. Then we're going into Grave Power. This increases our kill skills max stacks by 3, which is super important. And then going back to the blue tree, pop 1 point into Diner. We're going to get an additional charge. Now you can only have 3 clones out at once, but this allows us to kind of reposition them or get another attunement out. It basically is like having more action skill cooldown because we have additional charges. Then back over to the green tree, we're going to take Target Prescience, 5 points there. This is going to allow Vex to do critical hit chance against any part of enemies. This helps with like flying enemies, enemies that are moving around fast that you can't always get a crit hit on. And then back over in the blue tree, we're going to put our last 4 points into Sanguine Fiends. Now, Sanguine Fiends is a kill skill. Vex and her minions restore health. So this is going to allow your clones to stay out longer, because the duration of your clones is actually based on their health. So when they lose all of their health, they go away. So if they are gaining health for every kill and or every time their minions die, and or if you get a class mod that has whenever you critically hit, you're going to have those minions out for a lot longer, which is going to help once you get to the higher levels and you're fighting tankier bosses. And that is the leveling guide for Vex 1 through 50. Now, once I get some really cool legendaries and level up through Ultimate Vault Hunter ranks, I'm going to be back with my endgame builds for Vex, specifically for her clone tree. Obviously, I want to do all of her trees. Until the next video, definitely pop over to twitch.tv/AbbyHour and say hi. I'm running a subathon for the Borderlands launch, so hopefully I'm still live, because that means that the subathon is still going. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.